Professors that have been offered sexual favors by students or students that have offered sexual favors to professors. What happened? My brother is a professor at a large state school. He was propositioned so many times by students that he and the other 3 professors in their office suite agreed to arrange their office hours so that none of them would ever have to be alone with a student, female or male. Seriously, one of the best pieces of advice I ever received was from my MS advisor. He said that if it was at all avoidable to never ever be anywhere alone with a student, especially in your office. If you had to be for some reason, always leave the door open and sit so that the student could get to the door without going by you. Dude was great for a lot of reasons, but had heard too many horror stories from male and female colleagues about advances and threats from students. Sit so that the student could get to the door without going by you. Beep. Why didn't I think of that one? I'll have to use that. I'm a young male teacher. This whole thread is straight out of a nightmare for me. If you're ever in a situation where you're managing people and coaching someone one-on-one, you should remember to do the same thing. You never want your position or posture to imply that the person cannot get away. Adjunct in engineering here, male, very few female students. Only once, one of them began trying to negotiate a better grade and put out escalating hints that a BJ was on the table. I just smiled, wished her a good day, and kept my boner under the table. So the BJ went from being on the table to under the table. She negotiated him under the table. The negotiations were short. She's gone up the ventilation shaft. It actually happened when I was teaching finance. The young lady asked if there were any non-academic ways to raise her grades and suggested there were few places she was unwilling to go. I used it as a teaching moment. I suggested that she get a study partner, sign up for tutoring, and learn how to do the work. I told her offering up sex for grades would destroy her confidence and self-esteem, but working for and earning her grade would help her for the rest of her life. She earned a B. Good for you, and good for her. This is wholesome. I used it as a teaching moment. If I ever become a professor, I hope to be as cool and detached as you in that situation. I'm dying right now. Edit. OMG, dying from laughter. Sorry if someone took this the wrong way. I have a full, hopefully attached life ahead of me. A professor from my university walked into his office to a completely naked freshman girl standing in there with a 6-pack of beer. I don't think she was looking for a better grade or anything, was just attracted to him. He noped right the beep out of there. Edit. For the love of God, people. I don't know what kind of beer it was. Works 2 out of 3 times. What pose did you go with? I went with I have boobs. And she mailed it. And he mailed her. Short story from someone I used to know. She was struggling in her astronomy class and went into office hours for the professor. She kept making hints and using body language to signal she was DTF, but apparently the prof just kept slowly moving the picture of his family on his desk further towards her until she left. I guess you can say that she eventually *PUTS on SHADES*. Got the picture. Yeah. Edit. Great. My most upvoted comment is one word, and it's a CSI Miami reference. Thanks a lot, Reddit. I was teaching an astronomy class in graduate school when the girlfriend of one of my roommates, both undergrads, offered to orally pleasure me for a B, and the roommate was okay with that. I passed on the offer. I like to think they had a conversation and a negotiation before presenting you the offer. I bet he would totally give me an A if I beeped him. Out of the question. Well, I don't really need an A, I just need a passing grade. Maybe he will pass me if I blow him. Nap, you give great head. That has to be worth a B. I like to think about the conversation that happened afterward. Your girlfriend offered to blow me for a B. Yeah, and she told me you said no. Of course, I would never do that to a friend. So what? She's not good enough for you. You son of a beep. Happened when I taught in grad school. After I had collected the final exam for the semester, one of the most quiet students in the class started chatting me up as I locked up the room. We walked to the library from there and just made small talk. She seemed nice enough, but as I got to the library and put my stuff down, I told her that I needed some privacy to finish grading exams. She straight up tells me that she thinks I'm attractive and would like to hang out. She's bold because we're on the quiet floor of the library and it's packed, since it's around finals time. Not wanting to be an ass and a little shocked, I say sure and give her my number. Long story less long. I tell her we can't hang out until after grades were posted. She aced the class, didn't need any help from me to do it. Before we could even make it to a first date, we ended up hooking up in my car a few weeks after the semester was over. Told me that she was attracted to me from the very beginning of the semester and worked up the courage to ask me out after the final. Kudos to her. Happened when I taught in grad school. Read this as grade school and thought Jesus Christ as I finished the rest of the story. I need to read more closely. Why don't you have a seat right over there? School excursion. 12th grade, Germany. Most were around 18 by then. That one girl told us that she's about to get her grade upped by beeping the teacher who was with us and went over to his room 5 minutes later. That teacher came knocking on our door. The room where most of us were just having a small party, drinking and smoking pot, and we all panicked. After about 10 seconds we had hidden most of the harder stuff and opened the door to see our teacher entering with a bottle of whiskey in his hand. No booze here. I thought you're having a party? After 15 minutes and about a quarter of that bottle, he left us again and told us to have an eye on that girl because she will surely not be happy with the grade he will give her, and that trying to beat him wouldn't make it any better. It took us a long while to understand that he came over to make sure we all learn about that story and give him an alibi. Smart, yeah, but what did he do with the other 3 minutes? I remember asking my history teacher to bang for better grades. Sadly she wasn't down for it and neither were my classmates. I have more home-shouled stories if anyone's interested. I was a tar for an upper level philosophy class. A student came by for my office hours and asked for help on her paper. I was happy to help and she sat down and said, "It's so hot." She then undid her blouse completely and just sat there with her breasts out. I wasn't sure what to do, so I just read through her draft with her out loud and made some suggestions. When we were done, she buttoned up and left. I'm still not entirely sure if she was trying to seduce me or if she was just kind of strange. Anyway, I reported it to my supervisor and he reported it to the student's specially assigned mentor within the philosophy department. Apparently it wasn't the first time something like that had happened with this student. I seem to recall that she didn't graduate. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this to become such a popular post. In case anyone is still reading this thread, I guess I'll add some details and answer some questions. First, thank you everyone who pointed out my spelling mistake. I'm so embarrassed. Second, I have a history of understated reactions or misreadings of situations, at least by others' measures. When I was in college, I woke up to the sound of heavy breathing by my ear. I opened my eyes and found my roommate standing there with a knife in his hand. I had a lofted bed, so he had to get on top of a box to get that high up. I said, "Hey, roommate, what are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, boo. Haha. Got you." He was kind of strange, so I thought nothing of it and went to sleep. I told some friends the next day about the incident and they told me to report it to RAB. I didn't think it was a big deal, so they reported the incident instead. He was arrested. I still feel really bad about that because I think he was just being weird. I didn't feel threatened and said as much to the police. Eventually he was released and placed back in the same dorm as me, 2 doors down. After that he did threaten me and I reported it that time. But the university didn't do anything about it. Oh well. Third, as it turned out, the young lady from my original story did struggle with mental health issues, as I found out later. I wish I had seen that earlier and handled it better. Luckily, her special mentor in the department had been assigned for that exact reason. She didn't get in trouble, from what I can tell. She continued to come to class for the rest of the semester. Like I said though, I don't think she graduated, so perhaps she didn't get as much help as she may have needed. Who can say for sure? But for me, it was a good lesson for how to better help students who are showing signs of struggling with mental health. 4th, there were 8. 5th, when I checked Reddit for the first time after posting this, I had 69 messages in my inbox. How kismetic. Whips out titties. Dude just keeps on talking. Sad trombone. I know my mom banged a professor in college. Tada. Here I am. Right on. My man. Looking good. Not me but a professor friend of mine. Was older guy in late 40s teaching a business MBA class. Student in her late 30s gives him a card after exam grades were in saying she has liked him all semester and would like to go out with him. That was like 11 years ago. They have been happily married for 9 years now. That's pretty wholesome. Also professional. I see nothing wrong with asking out a professor after the semester is over, assuming you don't need to take any additional classes with them. Important to note that this is a 40-year-old and someone in their late 30s, and not a high school student. Then it's wholesome. Edit, just saying this, because the title of the thread implied a negative act. This is just a nice story about 2 adults. My kindergarten teacher just didn't understand this. Back in high school I saw a girl I knew walking around drunk in the middle of a shopping center, so I offered her a ride home. We had a math class together, and she asked me if I thought our teacher was weird. I didn't think he was. She then told me how he lent her lunch money one day and to pay him back she tried to beep him, but he turned her down. For something as little as lunch money. It shook her that he turned her down. I then had to turn her down in exchange for the ride home. Now she probably thinks I'm weird. That sounds like the girl went through some traumatizing beep. Definitely. I heard multiple stories of her being abused, so I think she just expected it. That's some sad beep. Not quite the same, but 13 years ago, whilst I was teaching at university, I ogled a girl after finding out she was into Stargate. A month later I was teaching her. A year later, when I wasn't teaching her, we met at a party and ended up hooking up. We've been together for almost 12 years, married 5, and have a son. Whoa, this took a turn. I'd love to be able to meet the cast and writers / producers / directors of Stargate SG-1 to thank them, as in some way, they are responsible. My friend is an adjunct professor of psychology and very gay. He would tell me of at least 3 freshman girls a year who would offer to do anything for a better grade. He would recommend better studying habits. Well, yeah. If he's, edit, very gay and they still offer, they obviously didn't study him very much. Not to me, but to my father. He was having a meeting with a student in his lab, and his colleague was working across the room. The student was coming on hard to him, and he was doing his absent-minded professor thing, and didn't really notice what she was up to. The colleague was apparently just killing himself at my dad's refusal to acknowledge / notice what was going on. The colleague proceeded to tell that story at most every faculty party, which is how I heard it. I saw this happen to my own dad. I was back in town for Christmas after a few years overseas, and dropped by his lab to walk him to lunch. The second I gave him a hug, I saw one of his postdocs looking absolute daggers at me. The second he introduced me as his daughter, the color rushed back into her face, and she was so happy she nearly hugged me herself. Later I asked him about her, and he just gave me an absent-minded look, and said something about her being a nice girl, worries about me, always making sure I eat lunch. Dad's a long-time widower, so there wasn't any animosity on my part, just hilarity. He's also pretty far along the autism spectrum, so if she really wants him, she'll have to dial it up a bit. No beep. I actually had to tell my DH that I wouldn't say no if he were to ask me to be his girlfriend. Dude was oblivious.